Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and we are here for the January 2018, I almost said 2017, the January 2018 Tabs3 virtual user group meeting from Attorney Computer Systems. And today we are going to be talking about budgets in general ledger. Mary Jo's going to take that topic, and holding transactions and statements in tabs. I'm going to take that topic. I'm going to press the series of magic buttons that will take me out of here so that Mary Jo can talk about budgets in GL.
Okay, so to set up budgets in GL, we first have to set that up in our account information. So every income or expense accounts that you want to have a budget set for, we need to set it. So we're going to go into the account information icon in General Ledger, and you just need to get out to your income or expense accounts that you want to go ahead and track budgets for. So if it's salaries or if it's, your telephone, office rent, whatever those accounts are individually, you'll need to go into each one of these to set your budget. So here we've got, we're in sample data, so I think we're back in 2013 or 14, maybe it's 14. So what I'm going to do is in column 1, I'm going to go over to my budget tab first off, that would help. So budget tab right here in account information. And for this one, I'm going to set the 2014 budget. And I'm going to show the 2014 actual. And then what I'm going to do is set the 2015 budget, because this, like I said, it's sample data. We have what our budget was in 2014, what we actually spent in 2014. And I can look at that to kind of gauge what do I want my 2015 to be. So there's a visual here that you can do to just kind of see where you were for this one account. Right now we're just looking at one individual account. When we're ready to set the budgets, we can go into the set budgets and we can set budgets for this account. Now, if you want to get a report of all your accounts that you set a budget for, you can be in any expense or income account and click on the budget report tab, select your year. I'm going to go back to 2014, and I'm going to say okay and preview it and just show you that you can get every single account that you've already set a budget for in a prior year, and you can take those figures out as well. You don't have to click and show that same columns that I just had and click column by column to just see what all your budget was and what your actual was for the year before. You can print this report that will at least show you the budget figures that you had. So that's giving me the whole of all of them at that time. So I'm going to get out of that report, come back in to set the budget. So to set the budget for each different account that I want to do, I'll click on Set Budgets. Choose the year that I want to set the budget for. So this is my 2014 values. I don't know where, we're in sample data, so I'm just going to click it up to 2017 because I don't know what we have in between here in our sample data. But we can set these budgets as the same for that year, or we can allocate it out and say, well, for monthly, I want to have this amount, or for yearly, I want to have this amount, and let it split it among the months. You can increase it by an amount. So maybe last year it was, looks like it was $7,500 every month. Maybe I want to increase that by $500. So I'm just saying adjustment amount is $500, saying okay, and it instantly adjusts that amount by $500. Also on the allocate, I could say percentage and say I want to raise it 10%. So if this were an income account, maybe I want to have my income be up 10% from last year. We can do a percentage and it will calculate that percentage out as well. Or when you allocate, you can set a certain amount monthly or yearly. If I said it was going to be, 500,000, it would go out 500,000. There we go, and say, okay, it would split that monthly for me. So you've got a lot of different options there on how you set the amount for your budget. So for this one, I'm just going to go back and say it was $8,000 a month. Say okay, and now I've got my budget set. Then as you start posting different things. So this is office rent. So as I start posting my office rent to my general ledger, it's going to keep track of all that actual amounts that have actually been written out for that expense account. And then when I want to just kind of see that on my income statement, all you have to do is pick your year, and I'm going to go ahead and say this whole current year. And again, we're back in 2014. And on the options tab, you have a column over here that you can actually show the budget amounts. So all you have to do is click on that If you want to see the variance, you can do that. If you want to see the yearly budget total, you could do that. There's lots of different options in here as you're showing it on the income statement. So now we'll just say okay and preview this. So for 2014, I'll be able to see what we actually spent for the year, what the budget was, and what our variance was. So obviously our yearly budget for our income for this one person was way high. It was the only thing we ever budgeted for on this particular sample data set. But you could see the difference, and all the way down, and at the very end, it would have your yearly budget amounts for your income and your yearly for your expenses, and you can see exactly where you are if you're over or above. So that's how that works. A lot of people don't know that you can set budgets in RGL and how to get the information back out after you've set these budgets, and then how to set them for the next year if you want to increase or decrease. So yeah, Paul?
That's budgets. Very good. I'm going to talk about how not to get paid, which is not a good way to meet your budget figure for income. I'm going to talk about how to hold transactions and how to hold statements in the billing system. As we all know, when you enter fees or expenses into the billing system, they will come out on the next bill that you print for that time period. So if I've been entering all my billing transactions through January of 2018 and I go in February to print a January bill, all those entries that I made during January, or at least that fell into the January timeframe, will come out on the bill. And unless I'm doing something to stop it, all of the people that owe me money in the system will get a bill if I'm printing all my bills. Now, some people print their bills just one-off. They say, well, I'm going to print a bill for this client and this matter, and I'm going to print a bill for this matter and a bill for that matter. But most of our clients do kind of a cyclical thing. Every month, every quarter, however it works for them, and sometimes it's both, they print all the bills that are being printed on a monthly basis, for instance. So first, let's look at how to hold a transaction. I'm going to go into the client manager because that's where I like to work on fees. And I'm going to pull up Michael Larson and go to his workers' comp matter. And so in my system, if I had printed a bill, all these transactions would come out, as of course, assuming that they are in the time frame. And if I want to take one of them and put it on hold, we'll see that there's this HP column here. And what that refers to is the hold print field. So if we pull up one of those transactions, we'll see down here that there's a status and it's currently sent to print. Now, you have to understand that if you're not seeing these things, it may be because we're in what is called rapid entry mode, meaning it doesn't show certain fields. But this button up here will switch you into the detail mode. If you're in the rapid mode, it'll switch to whatever you're not in. And so if you're in the rapid mode and you click this button, you'll switch to detail and you'll be able to see this field. And then when you pull that up, one of the things you can set it to is hold. Now, what this will do is, let's say you've printed draft bills and the attorneys come back and say, don't bill them for this one thing this month. We're going to hold on to that and bill them probably next month, maybe the month after. We're not sure yet. The problem with this, and there's really no way around it, but the problem with this is if you put it on hold, you have to remember to set it back to print, or else it won't be printed on next month's drafts or next month's bills until you set it back to print. Now, people that are putting transactions like this on hold typically will have a process in place as part of their monthly billing cycle that they will then go in, and I'm not going to go ahead and save that, they will go in at the beginning of every cycle and they'll run a transaction file list that shows them all the held transactions so they can either make sure to get them back to being printed or they can at least review them and decide which ones they want to include in draft statements. And so to do that, you'd want to go to the Transactions tab and choose Transaction Reports and go to the transaction file list. This is probably your easiest way to get a list of all the held fee and cost transactions. Of course, there's a lot to this report, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing. You decide what you want to look at, fees, expenses, advances. Nobody ever holds payments, so that probably would not be something that you're looking at. You probably don't want to look at a date range. You probably just want to look at everything that's on hold. And so if you go over here, you'll notice that it defaults to printing all held, all print, and all saved transactions. So basically over here, it defaults to printing everything, and you just want to print the hold. So bottom line, you can take a single transaction, be it a fee or an expense, and say, I do not want this fee or expense to appear on this month's bill, even though I'm going to print other items that should appear on this month's bill. And you can change it to hold. Just remember that you've got to keep a close eye on that and make sure they get set back to print, either at the time that you do want them to print, or some firms will just routinely switch them all back to print new draft bills, and let the attorneys tell them that month which ones to hold again. So that's a transaction level. That's taking one fee transaction or one expense transaction and keeping it off a bill. Now, there are a couple different ways to keep an entire bill from printing each month, but first we have to kind of step back and look at what your billing cycle looks like. Do you print drafts for everything and then let your attorneys pick what they want to bill? If that's the case, then this pre-bill tracking is probably right up your alley. If I go into generate statements and go over to the options tab, one of the things I can do is update pre-bill tracking when I'm printing drafts. And so what that means is if you start fresh with an empty pre-bill tracking list, print all your drafts, and then come into this pre-bill tracking, it'll show you all the draft bills that you printed. And then when you get those back from the attorneys, you can use these two buttons, reviewed and hold, to mark each bill. For instance, this one here, we may say that this one has been reviewed and we want to print it. And so you'll notice when I click reviewed, it puts a check mark in the R column. Maybe this one here, we decided that we're going to hold. And so you'll notice it puts a check mark in both the H column for hold and the R column for reviewed, which means we've checked it out and we know we don't want to print it. That's probably, at least in my opinion, your best bet for holding a bill from this month's billing cycle. Because then when all is said and done, you use this final statements button right here to print only the bills that have been reviewed and are not being held. So if I were to run this right now, if I were to click on final statements right now, I would only see a bill for this particular matter because it's the only one that's been reviewed and therefore is ready to be billed and does not have the H checked. Now, some people are not using the pre-bill tracker. Maybe they just don't know about it. Maybe they don't like it. Maybe they have another reason for not using it. Maybe it just doesn't fit their way of doing things. Maybe they just want to print en masse all final bills for everybody that owes them money, except this one guy. So what do? You can do a couple things, but both of these things kind of get you back to a situation where you've really got to keep track of what you've done. The methodology I just showed you using the pre-bill tracker is hey, hold this, but make sure it comes up next month. So it doesn't require any monitoring. You simply say, I've reviewed this, I want it to be held, and it will automatically come up in next month's billing cycle. You can also go into the client screen. Oops, don't know what I clicked on, but it certainly wasn't the right thing. You can also go into the client screen right there. And on this billing preference tab, there are two things. Now, all your statements, you've probably learned this as you're using tabs, everything needs to be set to release to bill, because if it's not, it won't come out even if you print a range of bills that would include that client. So that's one way to do it, is to set release to bill to nothing when you don't want it to print. But as I said, you've got to remember to come back in and turn it back to release to bill. If you don't, this client will never come out in the billing cycle again. The other thing you could potentially do is set it to release to bill and then say bill on demand. And then when you do go and print a bill for that client, that means that this release to bill will then be cleared. And if you want it to be released again, you'll have to come back in. Again, you have to remember to set it to release to bill. The only difference between having it set on release to bill and having it also checked on bill to demand is that when bill on demand is checked, it's going to, every time it prints a bill, it's going to uncheck this so that the next time it won't come out. Kind of confusing, and it is something that you have to monitor. So again, I don't really like either of those two methods because they do require that you remember to come back and release this bill again. And in my mind, everything that is ready to be billed should always be coming out on those draft bills, and it's up to the attorney to say, hey, don't bill this. And then yet one other way that we've seen people do, which is just kind of a replication of this, sometimes we see people create a billing frequency of hold. And so it's kind of like you change the billing frequency to hold, and then you have to remember to come back and change it to what it should be. I like that one even less, because if you change your billing frequency from what it should be to hold, then when you come back, you have to remember what it was supposed to be at in order to set it back to that. I would much rather see you leave the billing frequency where it belongs and use these two fields to control that. But I like that not quite as much as I like the pre-bill tracking that allows you to simply say, hey, hold this for just this month. And that's that. That's how to hold bills for a cycle and hopefully not forget if you're using one of these methodologies that requires that you should switch it back, or how to hold a single transaction and again, hopefully not forget to switch it back. That's that. Next month, we're going to be talking about finance charge. For those of you who are charging it, you probably know how to do it, but if you're saying finance charge, Tabs can do finance charge, well then this might be for you if that's what you're looking to do, because it certainly can charge a finance charge on unpaid balances. Mary Jo will take that topic. I'm going to talk about all the different things you need to consider when you change a timekeeper's rate. So that's next month. Of course, it wouldn't be an Attorney Computer Systems Virtual User Group meeting if I didn't take you out to our website and introduce you to our wide variety of video content. So I'm going to either hover over this video button to get a list of all our video titles, or I prefer to just click on the word videos and go to the page that gives me that description of our video titles. We have 4 live events, and 3 of them are the virtual user group meetings that we're giving today, 1 for Tabs, 1 for Practice Master, 1 for World Docs. We also have our Coffee Pot webinars. We'll come back to the live events in a second, but I also want to say that we have 2 pre-recorded events. We record 9 separate videos each month, and some of them are not live. Mary Jo records 3 e-bites every month, 1 on Tabs, 1 on Practice Master, 1 on World Docs. These are short little 2 or 3 minute videos where we take something really cool that we can explain very quickly and we put it in a video. We also have our longer format Paul and Mary Jo show, where either I or Mary Jo will take a broader topic and we'll spend 8 to 10 minutes, sometimes 15, sometimes even 20 minutes explaining all the intricacies of that broader topic. So it's kind of like an e-bite that has a topic that requires a little bit more time to get into. And then, of course, we also have our live events. So if we click, for instance, on the Tabs3 Virtual User Group meeting, more info, which is the live event we're in right now, we will be taken to a page where we can see what next month's topic is. We'll have 2 links that are identical, but some people like to click on a link that actually shows them where they're going. Both will take you to the same place to register for that particular event. And then as you scroll down, you'll notice that we have each of the previous live events listed here. This one is currently in post-production. It's not even there yet because you're listening to it being taped. But as we scroll down past that one, we get into recorded versions of everything. So you will find a recorded version of every Tabs or Practice Master or World Docs bug that we've ever done here in the appropriate page. And of course, you can also search. If you wanted to look for something on, let's say, emailing statements, you might consider typing the word email in this box and either going from the quick drop down that shows up right away or hitting enter and coming to this broader list that will show you all the video content that matches that. So that's it. Everybody have a good rest of the day and a good rest of the month, and we will see you in a hopefully warmer than January, February. Bye-bye, everybody.